Welcome everyone to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals, and part of what we do along with special guests are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. And this week, as you can see, we've had a lot of questions submitted. Something makes me think there might be Google Core Update questions and stuff coming. Something's going on. So we will go through those. But if anybody on the call would like to ask any questions, feel free to just flag yourself in the chat functionality below, which will be monitored. Also, feel free to share your perspectives. I think that's one of the best things about SEO Office Hours is we tend to have lots of SEOs also on the call, sharing just as much valuable stuff as our speakers. She's back. Juliana Turnbull, also known as SEO Joe Blogs, is here last week, gallivanting from Barcelona to London to go and hang out at another event, but she's back. Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for Ruth, my twin sister, who's in Brisbane, Australia, for dialing in and being the co-host. And yes, last week I was at WTS Fest. That was a great event. It was taking place on International Women's Day. This was a Women in Tech SEO community set up by Reed about nearly 5 years ago. And we had 10 brilliant women sharing their advice and tips on all aspects of search and also career advice and finance on International Women's Day. And it is a free global community. It's free. It's in search, marketing, and tech, and it's home to thousands of Miracle's part of it, myself, thousands of women who are all different stages of SEO. I can't get my words out. And everyone is welcome at the community. A big round of applause to Arij for setting that up.
I think Andy wants to say something.
Just obviously the clue there in the name, Women in Tech SEO. But if you're a guy, obviously don't go to the events, but you can sign up to the newsletter and it's fantastic. It is a real great resource and a great place to learn. I will find the link, stick it in the chat. Anyone can sign up to the newsletter. It's fantastic.
Yes, thank you for saying that. It's true. And a lot of people can continue to support Women in Tech SEO through partnerships, through sponsoring different events. And I also wanted to shout out to Natalie, who mentioned this in a post on LinkedIn. And it was because our Reed, before she was talking at Women in Tech SEO last Friday, a week ago today, she was acknowledging that there are many people living in conflict, whether war or personal circumstances. And at Women in Tech SEO, they're working to support marginalized genders alongside, of course, upholding all women. And Women in Tech SEO does this, supporting the community very well. And it's going to be growing even more in 2024. So thank you to Reach for setting up Women in Tech SEO. And I'm also wanted to say thank you to our speakers for joining us today. And thank you everyone for dialing in. I think we've got very international SEO office hours. So as Mike said, I'm Juliana Turnbull. I'm dialing in from Barcelona, Spain, where I run a remote digital marketing consultancy business. And today I'm really happy that we have Andy and Miracle joining us today. Miracle is the head of search at John Lewis Finance and has over 10 years of experience delivering search campaigns across global and national brands. She is currently studying a master's in strategic leadership, and she will be speaking at WTS Fest Berlin in June, and hopefully we will all see her in Brighton in October. And I will share the link so you can connect with Miracle, the LinkedIn link. And I also want to say a big thank you to Andy for joining us. Andy has been in the marketing industry since 2001. And actually, since 2017, has been the strategy director at Eximo Marketing. And Andy will be taking part in the Leeds Marathon on May 12th. A very big event. It's a very hilly course, I'm told, in Leeds. And he also runs a strategy sessions podcast. So I'll share both of those in the chat. And he is, of course, raising money for the Leeds Marathon for two great charities. So I'll share that link as well. Over to you, Mike.
Great. Oh, I'd done a half marathon before and that was enough. I can't imagine doing it all over again. Good luck, Andy.
Absolutely terrified. Terrified.
Yeah. Welcome everybody. We'll get cracking with the first question. So question number one, a competitor has approached us inquiring about the possibility of purchasing their business. We operate in a specific segment of the pet industry where all transactions occur online. What SEO considerations should we prioritize to evaluate the potential of this venture? Sorry, that's quite a long question. So somebody has come to them and said, would you like to buy us? And this person is trying to work out whether, from an SEO perspective, that makes sense. Who would like to kick off?
I'm happy to kick off.
Go for it, Miracle.
That is my sector, pet insurance. So I'm happy to kick off. I think when I saw that question, I said that person hasn't specified if they want to buy the business as a standalone business, or if they're buying it with the aim of like just redirecting to their site and gaining traffic. I think some of the recommendations will be very similar, but then there are different business considerations when you're using those two things. I think most important thing, I know loads of people, because it's SEO, they'll say traffic, but I will say revenue, because revenue it determines the quality of the traffic that they're getting. It's one thing to get traffic, but another thing to get traffic that converts. So one of the things I'll first look at is just to see how much revenue does the site generate. I think that's the ultimate thing. And then look at the traffic and that conversion rate, and then compare it to, obviously they're also in the pet industry, so they would have knowledge of the average conversion rates, especially looking at things like brand. So has that brand equity been grown? Because a lot of times people will focus on just generics. And as we can see, once there's an update and your site doesn't quite meet so you need to make sure that the site has a good balance of brand that converts well. Look at their links, look further than the site, look at the Trustpilot, all of those things affects how the brand perception is. And in the pet industry, because it's your money or your life, EAT is super, super important, which is why you have to look at that ecosystem outside of generic traffic. You need to make sure that the content that they're writing, all of those things, has longevity. We can see from the latest Google updates that there's a big crack on false information. So make sure you're checking their content, make sure that whatever equity they have built on the site is built around EAT, which is that expertise, content, information is right, the brand reputation is good, because those are all the things that affect EAT. So not just looking at the site traffic, but looking at how trustworthy and authoritative Google perceives that site to be.
Amazing. Andy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think SEO is probably an area that doesn't get enough airtime when it comes to buying businesses, and probably should be more important. And I think, without having all the details of this particular segment of the pet industry, there's typically three general ways you can approach buying a business like this. You can buy it and run it as a standalone business. You can buy it and integrate back office services, finance and distribution and things like that, but keep their brand still running in the SERPs. Or you can just buy it and move everything into your own business. And I think it then depends on what else is happening in that sector. How competitive is it? And that is probably partly an SEO discussion. What's happening in the search? If you're only two brands and you're really the only two shows in town, then you may be looking at different things. But if you are quite a competitive arena and there's loads of different things, you want to look at where the rankings are for each brand and who wins in what particular searches for products and things like that, because there's pros and cons to each one of those three options. And it's not like the three completely separate options. There's degrees within each of them. But generally speaking, are you going to keep it as a separate business? Are you going to keep the brand but not the business? Or are you just going to merge everything into one? That's a real kind of corporate strategic decision, but it has to be built out of a lot of information that you can find. And I think competitor-wise, it's not just about looking at each other. You need to look at the whole sector and the whole industry to see how competitive that is. If you look at how Expedia runs with Hotels.com and Expedia and all the other different brands they own, they keep them all relatively separately to try and dominate the SERPs to make sure that they're as many of the first however many pages as possible. So it is industry and sector dependent. There's a little bit more information we'd probably need about that, but definitely I think you really need to look at more than just each other's competition and each other's SEO, and look at the rest of the sector as well.
And for what it's worth, I actually know the person who submitted the question, but I don't have permission to say the brand or anything, but I can probably give a little bit more information. So they work in a very specific part of the pet industry that isn't as competitive as something like pet food. It's very specific. It's a certain type of, let's say, like medical equipment for animals, for example. And so it's very specific, only a small business, and the business that they're looking at acquiring is a very similar size. And I think part of the question from their perspective is, what Andy was saying, do we run it as a standalone business, or do we, from an SEO perspective, does it make more sense to consolidate and so on?
If it's a small business that the standalone business unit doesn't necessarily work, the real benefits of that are that competition between the brands that can actually force both brands to work better and start to dominate. Procter & Gamble are the masters at that, but this company probably isn't the size of P&G. But keeping the brands separately, but centralizing distribution, PPC, a lot of back office functions, that can make a lot more sense rather than just buying it and merging it in. I would say there's probably a slightly different version to this, that if the company's asked them to look at buying them, the words fire sale come to mind. I'd be having a look at the SEO, but I'd also be more concerned about trying to get a great deal on the company and just working it out as it go along.
Yeah, I'd also just say, I'd also want to try and find out how many people are working on that particular area of the site, because sometimes what happens if the site's really doing really well, and then maybe some people have been let go because they want to make sure that their numbers are looking more profitable, then it cannot always paint the best picture of, okay, how much actually resource do we need to dedicate to continue the sales and the revenue and the traffic.
So this is something that I've done a few times, and I was in-house for 11 years, and the company that I used to work for, they're an events company. A big part of their business, things like bachelor parties and bachelorette parties, they'd send people all over Europe on weekends away and stuff like that. And so when I was there, we purchased the only wedding magazine for men at the time. And it made sense obviously it used to get lots of traffic and so on. But actually, when we started digging into it, the owner of the website, of the original owner, was actually a journalist from The Guardian who went through the process of being a best man and realized that there wasn't great content out there. And so actually we bought it because the content was really good. And actually this was going back like 8 years ago. So before we were talking about things like Eat, this person went through that they had that first-hand experience, and then they got loads of experts in and so on. So we did it from that perspective. It was really, so the content was really good. It had lots of traffic and it ranked really well for those terms that we were trying to rank for, but it ranked because it had that slightly different perspective to what we had. We were obviously a company selling that stuff, whereas that was a company that was reviewing and sharing and all of that stuff. So it's offered a point of difference rather than being exactly the same content as what we had. And so we ran it as a separate business for a while. One thing I would say that you need to be really careful of is it's really difficult to run two separate businesses if you're just keeping the same size team, and then you end up splitting your focus in half rather than doing a really good job at one. And I think as time's gone by, unless you're willing to create a bigger team or you're taking on the team that exists there, in my experience, it's a lot easier to do one thing really well than do lots of things, particularly if you're trying to grow brands. But eventually we ended up consolidating that website's content into the company's content and made the blog really good and so on. But yeah, it's that's my experience of it. And we have done it before for smaller businesses, but to be honest, sometimes they can end up being a bit of a distraction rather than being helpful. Joe, what about you?
To add one more thing to that, and we mentioned that it's a niche market as well. So again, that the size of the market really it matters. If it's a niche market and there's not that much market share anyway, to split the business into two, thinking about efforts versus reward, will you then be competing against each other and cannibalizing the traffic that you could get, especially if you throw paid search into the mix, then you start bidding. So the size of the market, think about the market share. If you consolidate and it's a niche market, if it was a very competitive space, then it might make sense to run it. But if it's a niche market and combining it increases your size and your dominance, then efforts versus reward, paying more to run two sites might not be worth.
That's a very good point.
Also, sorry.
I was just going to say, we have some things in the chat, but yes, I'll just answer these questions or share them actually. So thank you, Monse and Chris, for mentioning a few things. So Monse was saying I'd look at their whole online presence too. I think we mentioned some of that, how they monetize it, the perception of the brand. That's also a very good one as well. And also look at any penalties that they had from Google now or in the past. What's the performance since the site went live? Chris was saying if you focus on the website, check on the backlink health, what links do they have coming to their site? Check that they're not the bad neighborhood links as well. And if there are any issues, probably think about as well how much it would cost to get that website up to scratch from a technical point of view. Also, Johnny's just mentioning quite a good few points here. Take a look at the business acquisitions made by Zoopla and Love Holidays. See if you can see what the domains did, what they did for the domains. Check out also any sort of digital broker spaces. Yeah, when you acquire businesses, you need to do a lot of the due diligence, agree a value, and make sure that you handle the products well, search experience for the users with great guidelines. So basically, yeah, it can be quite a lot of nitty gritty, shall we say. Back to your point, Mike, where it's you ended up merging that business into the company that you were working at. So thank you everyone for your chats. Back to you, Mike.
Yeah, I think with this stuff as well, when you see some of the bigger websites that have been taken over. So one of my favorites used to be greatest.com, and they were then bought by Healthline. Healthline was then bought by somebody else, I think Red Ventures and so on. And I think when you're taking over a huge website like that has tons of traffic, it's really important to think, can you make it better and can you grow it? And something that I've noticed with Greatest, I think the founder was quite key to growing that particular blog, for example, and it had an amazing voice and so on. And I know that they just don't publish as much content anymore, and they just don't, in fact, their homepage hasn't changed for about a year now. And I think that's really important when you're looking at buying a website, is thinking, can I make this better? And then Miracle, on your point about, you mentioned PPC actually, one thing is in terms of looking at how much you're actually spending on PPC at the moment for your current business, and actually could you take some of the money from that towards, if you're going to buy it based on the fact that maybe it gets traffic for some of those terms, and maybe you might save yourself some money in the long run by doing that. Great, hopefully that helps. Next, I'm going to grab a few because we've done that sort of classic thing again, 20 minutes in, and I've done one question. Okay, next question. I'm interested to hear what the panel thinks about this Google update and how it's going. Although I think it could be a positive for many well-written, designed content websites. Okay, so yeah, obviously there's lots of things going on at the moment, lots of changes, and we've got the March 2024 algorithm update rolling out at the moment, and then there's helpful content and there's spam updates and so on, lots of things happening. Joe,
I just wanted to actually I wanted to actually share, Lily Ray published a video yesterday, and I've just shared the link in the chat to basically reflecting on what has happened so far. I would recommend everyone to read and watch that, and before actually doing anything. But the point with all these updates is always to try and get the best user experience, to deliver the best results. She did mention in the update in that video that there are sometimes some sites that are unfairly hit, and then there are some sites that have been hit. So I would really make sure that you always are keeping a lookout for your Google Search Console, see where you're seeing any drops or not. Maybe it could just be due to seasonality, but the main thing is just to not panic. And there is so much information out there that you don't need to feel like you're on your own if something has happened. Don't immediately think, oh, it's because of an update I've seen this drop. Really look at all the resources, see what Lily Ray has said and is in the video. And the rollout can take quite a few weeks to roll out, especially if you're not in the US. So if you're in a smaller market like in the Nordics, it can take a bit longer. So if you are one of these smaller markets like that, look and see what's happening in the bigger markets, and you can actually learn from that too. But really, don't panic. Read what's out there and come to SEO for Office Hours as well for more advice and tips. Back to you.
Great. Andy or Miracle, do you have anything to add? Have you noticed anything with these updates? Have you heard anything?
Thankfully, my site hasn't been I say that. But I think it's really interesting to see like the outrage and the surprise. I was speaking to my team, and I was just saying, if I own like a department store, or someone comes to me, I want to pitch you a new product, and they bring to me a product that's exactly the same thing that I have on my shelf at exactly the same price range, there's no difference whatsoever. Why would I want it to occupy space in my shop? Because I'm not adding any value. And I think that's exactly what all of these updates to me are about. When you're writing content, not just because, and I've been banging about this for the past year, Not just because the keyword has a lot of search volume, do you write about it? Do you have a point of difference? Are you adding any value? Do you have a different approach? If you've done all that, it's not just about AI content, because AI can be really helpful. What's outputted there? Is it the same as everybody else? Are you adding, if you're not adding any value, then why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Why do you think that Google should rank you better? So if you haven't done any of those things, if you're sure that your site is adding value, as Jill has said, as Lydia said, as Mary Hayes has said, these things take long to roll out. So if you're sure that you haven't done anything, that your site is adding value, you've written content well, you have a different perspective, my advice to you is wait. If you haven't, then I think you really need to think your strategy going forward. I just believe that my personal opinion is that the web is so saturated. You Google something, all the page titles are the same. How am I supposed to know what page to click on if everyone's writing the same thing, if everyone's copying the same 5 templates to get your blog ranking, 10, I'm like, oh my God, you just end up going to the site on the brand. So I would say focus so much on building your brand equity. I used to work for a business, I'm not going to call out their name, that totally killed the SEP when it came to generic rankings. Totally. Their whole business model was built on that. And all of a sudden they were hit by a penalty and they had no brand search to combat that. No, and everyone was just running helter-skelter. Build your brand. Know your target audience. Don't just sit in SEO generics. Go to social media. What are your customers genuinely interested in? Build an audience. And that's why people love Reddit, because in Reddit, you can segment your audience. You can sit down there and just know it's so heavily targeted. Be hyper-focused on your audience and don't just run after every generic keyword there because it has a big search volume. That would be my advice.
That's amazing advice. Andy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just generally don't care. Honestly, whenever there's an update, I don't care. I joined an SEO agency for the first time in 2013, I think, maybe 2014. And 2013, maybe 2014. And every update since then, there's a whole raft of people going, oh, it's not fair. And then people going, here's how you come back from it. And then you do the thing. And then there's another one. And then the same thing happens and happens and happens. And look, if you're here and you're chasing an algorithm, as far as I can tell, everything that Google is doing is about trying to be better for the customer. So why are you chasing the algorithm instead of the customer? Just get around that and think about your customers. And then you'll stop caring about updates and you'll start worrying about customers instead. That's it.
Ooh, good answer.
Yeah, very good answer. Both very good answers. So we also don't typically worry too much about updates unless we have new inquiries based on there's been an update. We've seen it's impacted our traffic, and that's because we're called good signals, right? So if we're doing loads of bad things, then it goes against our whole what we're about. But it does sound like I love spending a lot of time on Twitter and seeing the impact there and what everybody else is saying. And it does sound like for some businesses or some websites, it may have been quite brutal, but it's so early. We're only we're a week in. It's going to be up to a month. I watched that same video by Lily Ray as well from yesterday, and the one before that as well. It's really good. And there's a blog post where I think she's using Systrix data, but yeah, just loads of people sharing their stories at the moment. Joe, what about you?
Yeah, there's loads of people sharing advice in the chat as well. So Simon was talking about best advice is wait, like we've just been saying 3 to 4 week rollout. He has seen sites drop and bounce back already. So it's going to be a roller coaster. And Monsi's saying, I definitely think we need to learn to take things easy and keep optimizing to be ready for any algo updates or problems. It's good for the environment. It's also good for the environment, believe it or not. Chris was saying, provided you have not been doing any naughty shenanigans, wait until the dust settles and use it as an opportunity to add more value to users. Like what you were saying, Andy. And it's not just up to you, but it's actually for your users. Back to what Andy was saying. Great advice he was mentioning, and 100% agree with Miracle Isaac was saying, people focus too much on what others are doing, the competitors on the SERPs, and forget to create a strategy of their own that adds value. If you do that, there's not much to fear. And also, if you are always copying other people, but then you're just going to be copying them. You're just a copycat. You got to actually do your own stuff. Be unique. So John was saying, awesome advice. Gatsy as well. Great advice. Monsi was saying. So also just saying, yeah, sorry, John, your website got a bit de-indexed, but now it's back on Google, so that was great. Albert was saying, if you haven't done anything wrong, then no need to worry. And yeah, if you always keep the user in mind, then you won't be stressed about updates. So thank you, Albert, and someone else who hasn't left their name, but that's totally fine. But also wanted to give a big thank you to everyone joining us live. I think it's one of our biggest audiences so far. We have Petro, we have John, Monse, Eugene, we've got Minnie, Munene, Sylvia, Paolo, loads of other people have joined us since Mary, Sandra, Gatsy, Raquel. Thanks all for interacting and being part of the SEO office hours.
Great.
Everybody heard Miracle was coming today. That's why everybody turned up.
It's a
That's why I'm here.
miracle.
That's the only reason I'm here, because Miracle's here.
Yeah, we've also got Monse, Neil, Steve, Ebere, Mary, Sandra, Sai, Debbie. Yeah, so loads. This is great. Thanks. I think we've got 25 so far, and of course we've got always lots of people joining us afterwards. You had 1,100 views actually for the week when my sister was here. So yeah, hopefully this one, when Jojo's back, it will also get lots of views.
Great. By the way, I do think we needed a big update, because leading up to it, I think there were lots of podcasts I was listening to and so on, with people moaning about the search results and the quality and so on, particularly with AI and people mass producing content and publishing lots of stuff. It felt like it was needed, and then when something like it happens, then everybody goes crazy.
Complain.
So yeah, it would be very difficult.
It's like that in all business. Nothing stands still in any part of your business, whether it's the search results, whether it's a competitor, whether it's costs of things. Everything's always moving, and we've just got to get out of this fixed mindset and into a more, I don't like using the word agile mindset, because people are then, oh, that's not really agile. And I don't mean it as in like a development process, just a bit more nimble, a bit more the fact that understand everything's going to keep changing, and just get used to that and just factor it into what you do.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I also just wanted to highlight also the SEO FOMO newsletter that's always out on Sundays, and last Sundays was really good I did mention about the update and just reassuring people like, yeah, don't panic. And just it was also about the AI content as well. And some of those sites that have been targeted, maybe they've just been using a lot of AI content, but that wasn't the point of AI, to completely get rid of humans and just use AI. Please keep up to date with some of the news, SEO FOMO, and of course, Good Signals has their own newsletter called The Signal.
Oh, thanks, Joe. We do. But I think Aleda and Lily Ray gets mentioned here the most. Each week, I'm sure they're both mentioned. Next question. So we had a similar question going back the week that we had David Sayers and Shannon McGurk from Error with similar questions. The person that submitted this also might want to have a look at that one as well. I want to set up and configure some monitoring such that we get alerted if something breaks. My concern is about the devs accidentally breaking / changing something that affects SEO but goes unnoticed. I did some research into tools and I thought that this, and then they've shared Content King, looked ideal. Have you used this before, or do you have any tools for the above? So they're concerned that if a developer, for instance, changes something, it might impact SEO, and it might go unnoticed until it impacts rankings, traffic, and so on. Has anybody had this issue before? Have you used Content King? Have you got any other recommendations? Who would like to go for it?
Can I just answer a slightly different question first? Not necessarily the question asked, which is about Content King and various other things. It sounds to me like you're looking for a tech solution to a people problem. The quickest way to solve this would be talk to the devs. It seems to be the answer. I'm thinking, why don't you go and talk to the dev team and explain what your concerns are and what might happen and what the impact could be, as opposed to going, they're a bunch of idiots over there, so we need a tech solution so we can go back and go, you broke this. We've got you. So go and talk to them. Maybe, look, the devs, maybe Slack them first, right? And maybe just have the conversation on Slack, or sit in the same room and send them a Slack message, whichever it is. Talk to them. I've never used Content King, so I can't help with that end of the question, but go and talk to them.
I second what Andy's saying. I think, a website governance model is what you need. And those things can be tricky to be. I feel one of the slight disadvantages, no one come for me, of remote working is the people don't build relationships. And so everyone's just behind a screen and everyone just gets very keyboard warrior-y, and you carry that trauma of your past experience with other devs, and you just, in your head, you're reading the reply as a certain thing. Take a day out and meet with the devs. Go for a coffee, a drink, whatever is your bag, and build relationships with these people. I find out in most cases, they have more sophisticated tools for monitoring all of these things. I've never used Content King. I've used Little Worded and it works. And there are things you can set in GA that will give you alerts, but that's not going to solve the problem. The fundamental problem is that you need a website governance model where the right people are contacted when changes are going to be made. Or we have people, because we do PPC as well, we have the dev team set up alerts that tell us as soon as the journey is broken. Like, they have more sophisticated tools than you do. So you build that relationship with them and speak to them. You're all trying to achieve the same thing. Whenever I come and say the SEO, we've generated more revenue, I always give credit to the devs. I'm like, thanks for them supporting us in this project and doing this and this. And I send them the playback as well to say, okay, this thing that you helped me do generated XYZ revenue. Again, it's a people problem. You can use that tool and then the thing is broken and then they deprioritize fixing it. What changes then? Nothing changes. So yeah, I would say it's a people problem as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, I just wanted to say, it's not just, oh, they need to work on it. It's about, if you have common KPIs and if you share those goals, then it's not just them and us, it's us all together. That's great, Miracle, that you always give credit to them. We have actually a few questions in the chat, or chats going on just about the tools though. Little Warden, Sitebulb, Content King are good, said Andy, that Chris was mentioning. Yeah, Content King works really well. Monse shared a link about Dev's perspective on working with others. That's quite interesting. And Albert's been sharing one around SE ranking. Yeah, so there's a lot in the chat, but yeah, really it's about, I would say, aligning your KPIs so that it's not them versus us.
Yeah, well, it does help both parties, doesn't it? No devs want their site to go down and no SEOs want the site to go down. So it does make sense getting into a room, and like Miracle said, they've probably got better tools. I've used all the ones that have been mentioned. If I'm honest, I find Content King can sometimes, when you first put it on a website, can be a little bit overwhelming because it crawls the entire site and then tells you everything that's wrong, and it's like, oh, where do I start? Whereas Little Warden, you actually put the URLs in, they just say, I just want to scan these particular pages or templates and so on, and it can be a little bit less overwhelming. There is another that I'm going to try and look for. Will Reynolds mentioned it the other day, where I've been playing with it and I can't remember the name, but it takes almost screenshots of before and afters and you can pick particular pages. He mentioned about using it for the search results themselves, where he was picking particular queries to see how the search results for those particular queries have changed. But I've been using it, been testing it on a particular website just to see if someone's changed the content or anything like that on one of the key pages. Is a way to alert straight away. But yeah, there are some amazing tools, and obviously you can set up alerts and analytics as well based on, if, for instance, based on traffic and stuff like that. Most of the ranking tools, you have them. Great. Anything else from the chat, or Joe, or should we jump on?
I just want to say thanks very much, everyone, for joining, and also those that are joining us not live. If you're enjoying SEO Office Hours, if you're enjoying the show, make sure that you subscribe to Good Signals and also the video. But if you want to come and join us live, just and submit your own questions, then sign up on goodsignals.com/SEO-office-hours, and this link will be in the description of the video.
Great. By the way, just on that question that we had before about the developers, when you're talking to them, actually, some developers, SEO is not necessarily a big skill set. So it could be a really good opportunity to sit down and go through some of these options, such as Content King and Little Warden and so on, and explain the impact of changing rel canonicals, for example, and stuff like that. And it's a good talking point rather than trying to give an overview of SEO on those really specific things.
Yeah, and sorry, just another couple of points actually. Gassi was saying that, yeah, digital marketing teams need to talk to each other and frequently and talk about the changes and things that will happen before they do happen. And Munyeni was talking about going back to devs and mentioning how the changes they impacted the company's code. So it's really important to have communal KPIs or joint KPIs. He's seen it work its magic. Really important to make sure you have that there. And make sure that you involve them in Monse's saying, and that their contribution is counted, as Miracle has mentioned as well. So yeah, that's it.
But on the other side of the question, so I know we've said about meeting up with the devs and trying to involve them and they've got better tools and so on, but sometimes some people are stubborn or they just don't have enough time. And so actually I get some situations where somebody might be thinking, look, if we lose all our traffic, if something does change overnight and I don't see, and I'm on holiday, I get why they might want to be alerted, and those tools are good at doing that. Okay, next question.
Question 4.
Okay, goodness me. How can you estimate the expected results or target results for the level of investment in link building? So I think what they're saying there is we're willing to do link building and we're trying to work out whether we spend X amount or we're a bit more aggressive with that. And how do we basically work out expected results of this? Anybody interested in link building? Anyone would like to start, or I'm happy to jump in on this?
I think you know the most about link building, or I would say brand awareness, not just buying a link.
Yeah, can I just say, just before I say, when I'm not now going after buying the link, we don't do that.
No, but I meant link building. People think it's about buying links, and more than anyone, it's not that. It's a brand awareness. But I'll let you take the floor.
Let's assume level of investment means about how many people you're going to put on link building rather than how much you're going to spend buying links. Let's assume that, shall we?
Yeah, so I always think with things like, so we focus more on the digital PR side rather than link building, but the outcome is getting coverage from websites that also tend to link back to what you're doing. And I always think with link building and digital PR, basically the harder you work, the luckier you get. When you're coming up with a campaign, the more time you can spend thinking of creative ideas, the more people you can reach out to. I tend to focus more on the inputs rather than the outputs. And although when it comes to level of investment, you can have really scrappy campaigns that do really well. And then you can go with something that's huge that you think is going to be amazing, and it just doesn't fly. And that's because maybe the story itself doesn't have that. It doesn't have the sort of pub factor where you tell your friends about it and so on. So I think a lot of it is based on the story. So maybe rather than thinking we need to spend tons, maybe spend a little bit at the beginning on the actual ideas themselves. And then when you've got a range of ideas, something that we like to do is go out, particularly anything to do with stats. And say, for instance, we've done some research and we're trying to work out which story is more interesting. We might go out onto, say, Carnaby Street or somewhere like that and go and ask people, tell them, and we'll record and see which one people are most interested in and want to talk about and so on. So I'd say level of investment, if you've got a really good idea that you're excited about, then it's worth spending more to get video and get graphics done and all that kind of stuff and design. But it's more about that initial idea, in my opinion.
Just to add to that, I can't remember his name for the life of me. I was trying to think about. I know Andy recently had him on his podcast. He's a marketing strategist. He was talking about how we've gotten so, because as marketers, we want to qualify and measure everything. We've forgotten about the non-tangible benefits of some of the marketing that we do. And I think digital online PR fall into this. And I'm not talking about the traditional buying of links. I see it more as a brand awareness and growth by association. That's why where you put your links really, or who you work with matters so much than the links that you get. So for instance, now I work for a company that launched like a silk hair scarf. And once we got into the independent, they didn't even give us a link. Our brand awareness, that trust just grew. And loads, and the link, they had a link in where it was no follow. So we just gave them the thing to review and they really loved it. And then they linked back to us. We got so many referrals from that. Even 5 years on, people were just sending us like traffic to us. So it's more than, and at the point, if you had access to quantify that, sending random, trying to find this journalist page and contacting them and getting rejected and all of that, we would have said effort versus reward. So it's beyond, I'm going to get a link and then in 6 months' time, my ranking is going to improve by 6 positions, 5. It's just, you have to think about the longevity of, and that's why you have to be really careful of who you approach, where the associations, like you're selling pet insurance and then someone with a shoe website is linking to, that's of no benefit to you or your user, or that association with pet and shoe doesn't even make sense. So again, it's just thinking about in the long term, where do I want to be seen? Who do I want to be associated with? Who do I want to be recommending me? And what is the value of this recommendation rather than quantity? And yeah, I'll say that.
100%.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the shout out for the podcast Miracle as well. Was it Dwayne Brown?
Oh God, I'm so bad at names. Don't put me on the spot now.
I'll just name drop. Might have been Seth Godin, Rory Sutherland, Dwayne Brown, if it was a guy.
It's
anyway,
Rory Sutherland.
Rory, yeah.
I do. Your
the big
podcast is amazing, Andy. I've listened to loads of them. It's so good. So definitely recommend that. So good. I'm just going to grab a load and we'll try and get through as many as we can.
Fire round, here we go.
Yes, quick fire if we can. There's never quick fire questions though. Yeah. Okay, beyond keyword placement, how can we craft compelling content that resonates with users and search engines?
Ooh, can I take this one?
Go for it.
And we can do this one really quick fire because I'm wearing the t-shirt for it. You won't be able to see. This t-shirt says, talk to your customers. I saw a lovely chart somebody put up, a guy called Brendan, which was, how do people come up with content marketing ideas? And it was only a small sample, but nobody talked to customers or listened to sales calls. They all do keyword research and online research, like get out from behind the screen, go and talk to your customers. They will tell you everything that bothers them, everything they're worried about, everything they wanted to do before they bought your product, everything they did after they bought your product. If you just ask them the questions and shut up and listen. Just go and talk to customers. That's how you create compelling content. Talk to customers, write things to solve their problems. The end.
Amazing. Miracle, what about yourself?
On keywords, there's so many places like your customers are hanging out. They're hanging out on social media, they're hanging out on Reddit, it depends on, I would say for me, my customers are hanging out on Martin Lewis forum. They're hanging out in so many places. I'm not just looking at Search Console or I'm not just doing keyword research using all the tools. There's so many tools out there, but I'm actually looking. Trustpilot is another valuable resource for me. Like, where are my customers hanging out, and how can I get their opinion? As Andy said, my team, we're really close to the customer service team. We're saying, send us your top asked questions. Send us what are people calling about. All of those things, and then we write from that perspective. First, I work with journalists. I'm giving some of my secrets away. I work with journalists to write our content. I'm not even. That's what we do. We work with journalists to write our content, and when they say send us a brief with keyword, we say we're not focusing on the keywords. Yes, we need the keywords. I'm not going to tell you that you don't need keywords. I always say to the marketing team, when people come to me, some people, parts of the team come to me and say, we've done this research and 10 customers say that they like it. I'm like, yeah, but then when we test it from conversion wise, that's not how they search, because people have become trained to search in a certain way. But if you write for your customer first, you would always succeed. You can add keywords anywhere. You can add keywords at the end. You can add, but obviously don't overdo it. But if you write for your customer first, eventually you will run out of ideas. Like, you can hire a team of 1,000 people to write around all the generic keywords in the world. You will run out of ideas. But your customer will have new problems as society changes, as the market changes. Keep on top of your customer. I really love Carrie Rose's, like, some of the articles she's done recently about like TikTok. I know that we as a finance industry, we're very far from TikTok, but it really concerns me that we are not going to TikTok, because that's where younger people are searching for information. And there is so much misinformation on there. It just breaks my heart that we're not jumping on that trend more to find out what are your customers talking about in real time. Be ahead of the game. Don't wait until the search volume grows to 1,200 before you prioritize it. Be on top of the game, and that's how to win.
That's great.
Can I ask a question, Miracle, about that? Sorry, Joe. Sorry. It's probably more a question for everybody, if they maybe have an idea, an answer to this, and drop it in the chat. You mentioned about Trustpilot and things like that. Is there a tool out there that will help you pull all the Trustpilot data in for perhaps if it's not your own product? So a competitor's pull all that in so you can then scrape it and then you've got it and can analyze it. Does that tool exist? Or is that what I'm going to be doing for the next 6 months of my life?
There are people who are very good at writing scripts that can crawl forums and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people, but I have worked with loads of people that are very technical in that way, and they can write really good scripts. There are scrapers out there as well that are Google Chrome extensions. I haven't used one recently, but when I did an analysis from like Martin Lewis site, there are people who are really good at writing scripts. You can download your own Trustpilot stuff, but I think with those, you probably need like a script.
Thank you.
I also wanted to highlight actually the 2023 Global Social Media Trends Report, actually by HubSpot and Brandwatch, which backs up what Miracle is saying, that basically around 1 in 5 Gen Z, Millennium, and Gen X social media users have contacted a brand through DMs for customer service in the past 3 months. And 76% of social media marketers say their company already offers customer service on social. So check what people are asking through social media, and check what people are talking about on social media in the comments as well. You can use tools such as Brandwatch to find that out, and that gives you more ideas. And also use internal site search. And actually, I believe Simon has mentioned that internal search function on your site. Check the queries not found. And also Sandra was talking about check the PPC search queries. Sometimes you can find a lot of questions. And yeah, other people are talking about, speak to your customers and your sales team. Look at customer services as well. Simone is saying make some online polls, interviews with people on the street. I think if you are lucky to be in a position where you have a lot of customers, I think you should use that and ask them to fill out a couple of short surveys or online polls, as Simone said. And actually, Simone's dialing in from Brisbane. Hello, Brisbane. Sorry, Brisbane, Australia.
Bris Vegas.
Exactly. Hi, how's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, over to you, Mike, because we have 8 minutes left.
Yeah, just on the asking questions, if you don't have a sales team, a good technique with that is just putting something like a Hotjar survey on your site and incentivizing people to answer the question, are there any questions that you have that you couldn't find the answers to on this website? And I found that gives us tons and tons of content that can be really helpful. The CEO actually of Seed Legals, I was listening to him the other day on a podcast, and he was saying that if he gets asked the question 3 times, he'll write a blog post on it. And I think that's a really good thing to do. So if any of his customers ask a specific question, that's smart. Next question. How can we avoid acquiring spammy or low quality backlinks that could have our websites, which could damage our website's rankings? So I think what they're referring to here is how, not necessarily trying to acquire these themselves, but say, for instance, that a piece of coverage gets scraped and is now appearing on lots of sort of spammy websites and so on. How can they avoid that? Any ideas?
I think it's a bit hard to sometimes have that scraping happen. When it does happen, though, I've seen it and we report it to Google, and then they've taken down that site. So immediately, if you see it, I would actually report that.
Yeah. To be honest, I find it's a really natural thing that if you get a piece of coverage in quite a high profile on a high profile website or publication, it often will get scraped, and it's just like a really normal, natural thing. You've not actively gone out to those places. So personally, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And I would just put your efforts into trying to drive more PR links and so on. Does anybody else have anything to add to that one?
No, just very similar to what you said. I would say the algorithms are really good at spotting patterns. If it's a pattern, I would not worry about it, because they're good at spotting patterns and knows that, and it can detect it's been scraped, and this is the original source. So I don't really worry too much about things like that, except you see it's personally affecting your site. Then but then you can then go through that process of getting them disavowed. But I just ignore them, because I've never seen, if it's a pattern that I know that this is an established pattern, I know the algorithms are really good at just ignoring it.
Yeah, Sai was saying that as well. Ignore them or disavow them. But yeah, I think with anything that someone does, actually, imitation is the best form of flattery. This is the way that people do it online.
Yeah, I was once in a meeting with it was quite a big TV channel. This was going back about 10 years ago. And I remember them saying that they have a policy that people can't link to them. I remember being in this, just thinking, this is just bizarre. A, you want people to link to you, but 2, sorry. And I was literally I was in this meeting and I was trying to explain that this is just like an unnecessary but impossible task that you're setting yourself up for. So yeah, I don't worry too much about this. You can create yourself a lot of work. Okay, last question. We'll go with the regular question, which is, what are you most excited about in terms of SEO at the moment? What are you most excited about? Miracle, what are you most excited about at the moment?
I think I'm really excited to see people start focusing on brand again. I think that for me is exciting, because I was getting a bit fed up with how, just a bit fed up about how bad the SERPs were and how similar and how lookalike. So I think I'm really excited to see. And I just, I like change. I hate things being the same. I love the twirls and swirls, the whole AI thing, and everyone. I was just like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna stand back and look at how this ends. So now I'm seeing like everyone's like, oh, maybe we need to pivot to. I feel, I don't know. I just feel the whole industry is exciting. I just sit back with my popcorn and just be like, oh yeah, here we go again. Not the most strategic answer, but
That's great. Andy, what about you? What are you most excited about at the moment?
I'll give you a positive and a negative. I'll start with a negative. I'm really looking forward to watching the continued implosion of Twitter, tangentially SEO, because so many SEOs are there and hanging out, and such a great community. And it's not for SEO that I want it to die, it's for the idiot who runs it. But like, that's a bit negative. So I'm going to go back to where we started. I'm looking forward to watching the continued phenomenal growth of women in tech SEO. I think it's a fantastic community doing great things, and watching new events, bigger events. I saw a Reach post the other day that the next one in London is going to be 2 days. It's just amazing to sit on the sidelines and watch this grow.
Great. Joe,
great answer.
Yeah, well, actually, that was my answer actually for what am I most excited about in SEO, and actually I said it at the beginning in the intro. But I am very excited to see how that develops and changes and develops as I said, it's going to, as Andy mentioned, it's going to be even bigger for next year. I was lucky to be a volunteer. Miracle speaking there at WTS Fest in Berlin. There's a lot of community building, and really communities is the way forward in our industry, and I'm just astonished how big it has grown. So I'm looking forward to seeing that develop, but I'm also looking forward to seeing other communities develop in our industry. There was always a big focus, I think, in some of the bigger cities like London, New York, and I'm really happy that there's things like SEO office hours, there's other online events that people can attend, and there's events taking place also there's Search African taking place at May 17th, run by a bearer. So really excited to see all those developments. I'm always happy to see more SEO events.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, like the communities that have grown out of all of those, you can see like the first Women in Tech, there were like very few people of color, and now that's exploded. There's the neurodivergent community as well, that's exploded. So yeah, all of these, there's the Chimas community as well, which is the FCDC, like all of those, there's Be Digital, like all of these communities that are growing out of people feeling safer now, and people just feeling safer, that psychological safety that Women in Tech SEO has created, and it's grown and exploded, and nobody feels like any question is a silly question. You can come to a place like this and not be nervous that someone's going to be like, oh, you said that wrong, or no, that's not what this is called. And that kind of behavior that has encouraged for the positive behavior, I think that's a very great thing to call out.
That's such an amazing note to finish on. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thank you. Thank you, Miracle. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Have a lovely weekend, everybody, and see you this time next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone.
Thanks for having me. Bye.